Hey everybody, welcome to Real Mob Stories. This is your host, James Proctor. Today we're going to be covering 5 infamous mobsters who broke the sacred rules of the Mafia and paid the ultimate price. The Mafia operates on a strict code of conduct, and when these rules are broken, whether it's failing to follow orders, disrespecting leadership, or betraying the family, there are deadly consequences. Each of these cases not only resulted in the mobster's death, but also had ripple effects that shaped the Mafia's history forever. Before we get started, please do me a favor and hit the like button, and also consider subscribing to Real Mob Stories with James Proctor to get the latest news and historical snapshots of the American Mafia. Without further delay, on to our feature presentation. Disobeying a direct order. One of the most important rules that a mobster must follow is that when the boss tells you to come in, you must obey. This is even talked about during the induction ceremony of a new soldier. You're told that if the boss calls you in, it doesn't matter what you're doing, and that could even include your wife's in labor delivering a baby. You have to drop everything and meet the boss. In our first example, this Gambino soldier made the decision to stay away, and it didn't end very well for him. Louie DeBono was a Gambino family soldier with a lucrative construction business, but he wasn't well liked and was despairingly given the nickname Jelly Belly because of his 310-pound frame. The Gambino boss, John Gotti, had been telling DeBono to come in, but he refused. There's speculation they knew that John Gotti's underboss, Sammy the Bull Gravano, didn't like him, and DeBono didn't come in because he believed he'd be clipped. For several months, the Gambinos were having difficulty finding Louie DeBono, but he was actually still in New York. He had a highly lucrative contract to apply fireproofing foam to the steel crossbeams beneath each floor of the Twin Towers. One of Sammy Gravano's business partners, Joe Madonia, found out where DeBono was at and gave Sammy DeBono's business card. Also, Gambino soldier Johnny Gamarano found out that DeBono was working at the Twin Towers and also told Sammy Gravano. DeBono's refusal to come in when called by boss John Gotti sealed his fate. On October 4, 1990, in an underground parking garage at the World Trade Center, Louie DeBono was found by an attendant around 3 p.m. in the afternoon, lying across the front seat of his 1987 Cadillac. As per the police, the 310-pound construction contractor, who was 63 years old when slain, had been shot outside the car, then pulled into the front seat and left in the garage. The hit was ordered by Gotti, frustrated by DeBono's perceived disrespect and lack of loyalty. His murder came back to haunt Gotti. It was discussed in detail on the infamous Ravenite tapes that led to Gotti, underboss Sammy Gravano, and consigliere Frank Licasio being arrested in December 1990. Gravano later turned informant, helping to convict Gotti and Licasio, both of whom received life sentences. Later in 2009, Gambino soldier Charles Canaglia was sentenced to life in prison after being convicted of 4 murders, including Louie DeBono's. DeBono's death wasn't just about enforcing mob discipline, it marked the beginning of the end for the Gambino dynasty under Gotti. Disrespect and the fall of the Bath Avenue crew. Next, we go to Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, where a dangerous gang or farm team of the Bonanno crime family was wreaking havoc all across the neighborhood and beyond. However, the leader of this farm team, who was on record with the Bonanno family, made the mistake of laying hands on a made man, which is a death sentence. Paul Galino, or Paulie G, was an ambitious leader of the Bath Avenue crew, a farm team for the Bonanno family in the 1990s. Paulie G was looking to get his button, which is vernacular for being an inducted Mafia soldier. Paulie G was very dangerous and was under the direction of Bonanno soldier Joe Bonanti. Joe Bonanti reported up to Anthony Sparrow, who happened to be the consigliere of the Bonanno family. Paulie G and his group of Bath Avenue crew members were drawing a lot of attention due to their violence and beefs against a rival gang called the 20th Avenue crew that happened to be on record with the Colombo family. Violence reached such a high level that Anthony Sparrow stepped in to quiet things. He allowed everyone away to save face, put the guns away, and get back to what was important for his Bath Avenue crew, making Sparrow money. Galino didn't want things to go down this way. He wanted war. He wanted to fire his gun into the heads of the other guys and rob them of their lives. He wanted to prove himself all the way to the max. That way, Sparrow would have to get Joe Messino to bring Polly Brass formally into the crime family. Sparrow told him to stop when Galino wanted Sparrow to issue death warrants. He wanted Sparrow's full support to carry on the street war until the end. Then he warned Sparrow dead once he realized that he wasn't going to go for any of this. The two had a loud argument, and at some point, Paulie G put hands on the old man and shoved him. Sparrow turned his back on Galeno and quietly walked away. What Paulie G did was an unforgivable act of disrespect, and there was only one way to resolve this disrespect. On July 25, 1993, Paulie G was eating breakfast at his parents' kitchen's table. Sometime after 11 o'clock that morning, Bath Avenue members Joey Calco and Tommy Reynolds stopped by. The three of them talked for a couple of minutes. Then Joey Calco asked, "Hey, Paulie, can I have something to drink?" When Paulie turned around to walk into the kitchen, Calco and Reynolds followed him. Calco pulled out his gun and shot him in the back of the head. Paulie fell, and Joey went up to him and put the gun to the side of his head and shot him again. Paulie G's death marked the collapse of the Bath Avenue crew as several members became government witnesses. Sparrow himself would later be convicted of murder and racketeering and died in prison in 2008. Paulie's death didn't just eliminate a problem for Sparrow, it symbolized the end of one of the Bonanno family's most infamous farm teams. Bringing an FBI agent into the family. Our third example involves an infamous mobster who made the mistake of allowing an undercover cop to infiltrate his crew. It's a mob rule that you don't deal with cops nor informants. Dominic Napolitano, also known as Sonny Black, was a Bonanno captain who allowed FBI agent Joe Pistone, a.k.a. Donnie Brasco, entry into the family as an associate. When Pistone's true identity was revealed in 1981, the Bonanno family suffered a massive hit. The FBI's operation led to dozens of indictments and convictions. To save face, the Bonanno boss Joe Massino held Sonny Black responsible for the infiltration. On August 17, 1981, Dominic Sonny Black Napolitano walked knowingly into the shadow of his own death. Summoned to a meeting at the Staten Island home of Bonanno associate Ron Filocomo, Napolitano prepared for the inevitable. Aware of the fate awaiting him, he removed his jewelry and handed it to a trusted bartender at the Mosin Lounge beneath his apartment. Along with his keys, he gave instructions for the care of his cherished pet pigeons, a poignant acknowledgement of his grim foresight. Sonny Black was driven to the house by Bonanno capo Frank Lino and Stephen Canone, and he was greeted at the door by Frank Coppa, who directed them to the basement. As Sonny Black descended the stairs, Coppa slammed the door shut, signaling Lino to shove him down the staircase. At the bottom, Robert Lino Sr., Frank Lino's cousin, and Filocomo were waiting. Lino Sr. fired the first shot, grazing Napolitano, but his gun malfunctioned when he attempted another shot. Facing death with characteristic defiance, Napolitano reportedly said, "Hit me one more time and make it good." Filocomo obliged, firing several rounds from a .38 caliber revolver, ending Napolitano's life. The fallout from this incident was severe. The Bonanno family was kicked off the commission and sidelined for nearly a decade. Joe Massino's eventually was able to rebuild the family, but Sonny Black's failure to vet Pistone had long-lasting consequences. Killing a boss without commission approval. Even though we've seen hundreds of mobsters killed over the years, there's a protocol that must be followed, especially if it's an on-the-record hit. In this fourth rub-out, this mobster was part of a team called the Fist that was looking to get rid of the existing boss at the time and replace him with somebody else. However, it was done outside of the approval of the commission, a big no-no, and this meant blood had to be paid. We're talking about Gambino Frank DeCicco, who was John Gotti's underboss and was instrumental in orchestrating the 1985 assassination of Gambino boss Paul Castellano. However, the murder lacked the commission's approval, violating a fundamental rule of the Mafia. On April 13, 1986, Gambino underboss Frank DeCicco was killed in a car bombing in Docker Heights, Brooklyn, after visiting Castellano loyalist James Failla at the Veterans and Friends Social Club. The attack targeted DeCicco and Gambino boss John Gotti as part of a revenge plot orchestrated by Lucchese boss Anthony Corallo and Genovese boss Vincent Gigante with the assistance of Vic Amuso and Anthony Casso of the Lucchese family. The bombing aimed to avenge the murders of Paul Castellano and Thomas Bilotti by eliminating their successors. However, Gotti canceled his planned trip to Failla that day, leaving DeCicco and a soldier mistaken for Gotti as the victims when the bomb detonated beneath DeCicco's 1985 Buick Park Avenue. DeCicco's death was part of a broader feud sparked by Castellano's murder. Other Gambino members, including Eddie Lino and Bobby Borriello, also fell victim. This series of retaliatory killings fractured the Gambino family and left Gotti on uneasy terms with Chin Gigante, straining relations between these two powerful families. Selling memberships to the Mafia. And finally, we have our last mobster killed for breaking the rules. This time we have made the most unusual rule of all being broken, but one that broke everything that Cosa Nostra stood for. This mobster was selling memberships into the Mafia at the highest bid. Frank Scalise was the underboss of the Anastasia, later Gambino family, and broke one of the mob's most sacred rules. He sold memberships into the Mafia. Scalise's greed not only undermined the integrity of the family, but also exposed the organization to unqualified and untrustworthy recruits. On June 17, 1957, Scalise was shot to death at a Bronx fruit stand. While the official motive remains murky, it's widely believed that his actions led to his demise. Scalise's death created instability within the family, and later that year, boss Albert Anastasia was killed in a barbershop hit. Carlo Gambino took over, ushering in a golden era for the family. The fallout from Scalise's actions led to the Mafia closing the books, halting new memberships from 1957 to 1976, ensuring such breaches wouldn't happen again. So that's our show for today. Those five mobsters, Louie DeBono, Paulie G, Sonny Black, Frank DeChico, and Frank Scalise, all broke the rules of the Mafia, and they paid the ultimate price. And for me, their stories remind me of the strict code that governs organized crime and the consequences of stepping out of line. But their deaths didn't just impact their lives, they also sent ripples throughout the whole Mafia, shaping its history in profound ways. So what do you think? Were those killings justified within the Mafia's code, or were they just more examples of paranoia and power struggles? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more in-depth mob stories. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and God bless you always.